Princess Zara pressed her palm against the cold crystal window of her tower chamber. The surface felt smooth beneath her blue-tinged skin as she watched the strange metal ships descend through the purple clouds of her home world below, in the palace. Courtyard servants rushed about preparing for the arrival of the mysterious beings from beyond the stars. The Vorthon High Council had been meeting for days behind closed doors. Their voices carried through the crystal walls, speaking of desperate measures and final chances. Zara knew they were discussing her future again. The same conversations that had haunted her for the past decade since she had reached the age of bonding at 28 cycles old. She was considered past her prime by fourth-hand standards. Most royal daughters were mothers by 20 with several children to secure the bloodline. But Zara remained childless despite the parade of suitable males who had been brought before her. Each attempt at bonding had failed, leaving her more isolated and desperate. The court physicians had examined her countless times. Their crystal scanners hummed over her body, searching for defects in her reproductive system. They found nothing wrong, yet no Vorthon male could quicken life within her. The whispers followed her through the palace halls, calling her cursed, barren, broken queen mother. Thela entered the chamber without announcement. Her silver robes rustled against the polished floor as she approached her daughter. The older woman carried herself with the dignity of centuries of rule, but Zara could see the worry lines that had deepened around her large silver eyes. "My daughter, the queen," began, her voice carefully controlled. "The humans have accepted our invitation. They send their diplomatic mission to discuss terms of alliance." Zara turned from the window, knowing what those terms would include. She had always been a bargaining chip in the political games of her people. "What do they want from us, mother?" Zara asked, though she suspected the answer. The humans possessed technology that could save their world from the approaching Krell invasion. Their weapons could pierce the enemy shields. Their ships moved faster than anything in the Vorthon fleet. "They offer protection in exchange for knowledge," the queen replied. "Our scientists have studied their proposal. They wish to learn our crystal technology, our energy manipulation arts. In return, they will defend our borders and share their military innovations." What else? Zara pressed, knowing there was more. The alliance would need something deeper than technology exchange to bind two species together. Something personal and permanent. The Queen Mother hesitated before answering. "They have expressed interest in cultural exchange through marriage bonds. Their ambassador specifically requested to meet you, daughter. Your unique situation may actually serve our people well." Zara felt her heart sink in her chest. The humans wanted a political marriage, and she was the obvious choice. A barren princess held little value to her own people but might seem exotic and valuable to aliens who knew nothing of her failure. The first human ship touched down on the landing platform just after the midday meal. Zara watched from her window as a group of beings emerged from the vessel. They looked remarkably similar to Vorthons, but with darker skin tones and strange hair colors that ranged from yellow to brown to black. Ambassador Lisa Campbell led the human delegation. Her confident stride and bright smile impressed even the usually stern Vorthon guards. Lisa wore a simple blue uniform that complemented her blonde hair and green eyes. She carried herself like someone accustomed to being heard and respected. The formal greeting ceremony took place in the Great Hall of Crystals. The massive chamber stretched 5 stories high, with walls of pure singing crystal that resonated with harmonious tones when touched by emotion. Hundreds of courtiers lined the balconies wearing their finest robes to witness this historic moment. Zara stood beside her mother on the royal platform, wearing ceremonial white robes embedded with thousands of tiny light crystals. The garments were traditionally worn by unbonded princesses, but at her age they felt more like a reminder of her failures than a symbol of potential. Ambassador Campbell approached the throne with proper protocol, bowing at the appropriate distance and offering the traditional gifts of greeting. Her movements were precise, suggesting she had studied Vorthon customs carefully. The respect she showed impressed the watching nobles. Welcome honored visitors from the Star Realm. Earth Queen Mother Thela spoke in the ancient formal tongue. The crystals amplified her words, filling the vast space with ringing echoes. "We are pleased to receive you in friendship and hope for mutual benefit." Lisa responded in carefully practiced Vorthon. Great Queen, we bring greetings from the United Earth Federation. Our peoples share the darkness between stars and face similar challenges. We believe cooperation will strengthen both our civilizations. The initial meetings progressed smoothly over several days. Lisa proved to be an intelligent negotiator who understood the delicate balance of interstellar politics. She asked thoughtful questions about Vorthon society and shared insights about human culture that fascinated her hosts. Zara attended these meetings as protocol demanded, but remained largely silent. She observed the humans with growing curiosity, noting how differently they interacted compared to her own people. The humans touched each other casually, showed emotions openly, and seemed to value individual opinions over group consensus. On the fifth day, Lisa requested a private audience with Princess Zara. The request surprised everyone, including Zara herself. No one had specifically asked to meet with her in years. Most visitors were politely introduced, then quickly moved on to more important matters. They met in the Garden of Reflection, a peaceful space filled with singing flowers and crystal pools. Lisa had changed from her formal diplomatic attire into simpler clothes that made her appear younger and more approachable princess. Zara, Lisa began. I hope you do not mind my directness, but I have heard rumors about your situation. I wanted to speak with you personally before any agreements are made. Zara felt heat rise in her cheeks. What have you heard? She asked, dreading the answer. She could imagine what stories had reached the human ambassador, that you have been unable to bear children and your people consider this a failing. Lisa said gently, I wanted you to know that humans view such matters very differently. We believe a person's worth extends far beyond their reproductive capabilities. The princess stared at this strange alien woman who spoke so casually about intimate matters among Vorthons. Such topics were discussed only with physicians and immediate family. Yet Lisa's words carried no judgment or pity, only genuine concern. Your culture fascinates me. Lisa continued, I have spent days studying your history, your art, your scientific achievements. Much of your greatest advances were made by individuals who never had children yet. Your society remembers them as heroes. Zara had never considered this perspective. She had been so focused on her role as potential mother to future heirs that she had forgotten other ways to serve her people. Her grandmother had been a renowned artist whose crystal sculptures still adorned the palace. Why do you tell me this? Zara asked. What difference does it make to the alliance negotiations? Because, Lisa said with a smile, any agreement involving you should be based on your true value, not on outdated assumptions about what makes someone worthwhile. You are clearly intelligent, educated, and thoughtful qualities that would benefit any partnership. For the first time in years, Zara felt a spark of hope. Maybe there was more to her future than endless shame and disappointment. Maybe these humans saw possibilities that her own people had missed. The conversation marked the beginning of changes that would transform both their worlds. Captain Jake Morrison arrived with the second wave of human ships 3 weeks after the initial diplomatic contact. His transport vessel carried military advisors, engineers, and additional supplies needed for the growing alliance negotiations. Zara watched from her usual window as his shuttle descended through the morning clouds. Jake stepped onto the landing platform with the confident bearing of a seasoned soldier. His dark hair was cut in military fashion, and his brown eyes surveyed the alien architecture with professional interest. Unlike the diplomats who had arrived before him, Jake wore practical field uniforms designed for action, rather than ceremony. Ambassador Campbell greeted him personally, walking across the crystalline platform with obvious relief. Jake, she called out, it's good to see you again. We have made significant progress, but your expertise will be crucial for the next phase. The captain embraced Lisa briefly in the casual human manner that still surprised fourth-hand observers. How are the negotiations proceeding? He asked while his eyes swept the towering spires of the royal city. The defensive positions and sight lines caught his attention automatically. Better than expected, Lisa replied. But we face some unique challenges. The Vorthons need immediate military support against the Krell threat, but their society operates on very different principles than ours. We need someone who can bridge that gap. That evening, the humans held a private meeting. In their assigned quarters, the rooms were beautiful examples of Vorthon crystal architecture, but Jake found them impractical for strategic planning. He had his people rearrange the furniture to create a proper briefing area. Lisa explained the political situation while displaying holographic star charts. The Krell Empire had been expanding aggressively for decades, consuming smaller civilizations and enslaving their populations. The Vorthans possessed advanced energy technology that could enhance human weapons but lacked the military experience to use it effectively. The marriage alliance proposal came up during the second hour of briefing. Jake listened carefully as Lisa described Princess Zara and the complex cultural issues surrounding her status. The Vorthans viewed their princess as a failed royal, but Lisa believed she could be the key to deeper cooperation. "You want me to marry an alien princess?" Jake said with raised eyebrows. "This sounds like something from an old space adventure novel." "Are you certain this is the best approach? It's not just about the marriage," Lisa explained. "The princess is highly intelligent and well-educated. She understands both the political and technical aspects of the alliance better than most of her people. Her personal involvement would demonstrate the seriousness of our commitment." Jake studied the holographic displays showing Vorthon society and culture. The information painted a picture of a people bound by ancient traditions, but facing extinction if they could not adapt to modern threats. A political marriage might indeed provide the stability needed for long-term cooperation. "What is she like?" he asked. Wanting to understand the person behind the political necessity, Lisa had spent considerable time with Princess Zara and would have formed personal impressions beyond the diplomatic reports. "Remarkable," Lisa answered without hesitation. "She carries herself with dignity despite years of social rejection. Her people have made her feel worthless, but she possesses qualities that would be valued highly in human society. She is kind, intelligent, and surprisingly strong." The next morning, Jake was formally introduced to the Vorthon royal court. The ceremony took place in the hall of mirrors where crystalline surfaces reflected light in spectacular patterns. Queen Mother Thala presented him to the assembled nobles, emphasizing his military achievements and leadership experience. Princess Zara entered the hall wearing deep blue robes that complemented her natural skin tone. Jake felt his breath catch as she moved toward the royal platform. Her grace and bearing reminded him of classical dancers from Earth, but there was something else in her silver eyes that intrigued him. The formal presentations followed ancient protocol, but Jake found himself studying Zara throughout the ceremony. She responded to each introduction with appropriate courtesy, but he noticed how she seemed to withdraw slightly when her own accomplishments were mentioned, or rather the lack of them. After the ceremony, Jake requested permission to speak privately with the princess. The request caused a stir among the courtiers, who whispered among themselves. Such direct communication between unmarried individuals was unusual in Vorthon culture, but Queen Mother Thala granted permission. They met in a smaller chamber adjacent to the hall. The room contained comfortable seating arranged around a central crystal fountain that provided gentle background music. Jake chose a chair across from Zara, maintaining respectful distance while allowing for conversation. "Princess Zara," he began, "I want you to know that I understand the difficult position you are in. This alliance requires sacrifices from both our peoples, but I do not want you to feel pressured into something you do not want." Zara looked surprised by his directness. Most Vorthon males approached such topics with elaborate ceremony and indirect language. Jake's straightforward manner was refreshing, even if it felt strange. "Captain Morrison," she replied, "I appreciate your consideration, but I have accepted my role in this matter." "That is not what I meant." Jake continued. "I have read the reports about your situation, but I want to hear your perspective. What do you think about this proposed arrangement? How do you feel about marrying someone from another species?" No one had ever asked Zara about her feelings regarding marriage. The previous candidates had been selected by the council, and she was expected to accept whatever choice they made. Jake's question caught her completely off guard. She began, then stopped to gather her thoughts. "It is my duty to serve my people in whatever way brings them benefit. If marriage to you strengthens the alliance, then I will fulfill that obligation." "But what do you want?" Jake pressed gently. Not what duty requires, but what would make you happy if you could choose freely. The question was so foreign to Zara's experience that she struggled to formulate an answer. Vorthan royalty were trained from childhood to put duty before personal desires. The concept of choosing freely seemed almost impossible to grasp. I do not know, she admitted quietly. I have never been asked that question before. Everything in my life has been determined by duty and tradition. My wants have never seemed important. Jake leaned forward slightly, his expression serious. Your wants are important, he said firmly. At least they are important to me. If we are going to be married, I want it to be a partnership between equals, not an obligation. You endure. Zara felt something shift inside her chest. The casual way Jake spoke about equality and partnership challenged everything she had been taught about relationships. Vorthan. Marriages were political arrangements designed to produce children and strengthen family alliances. You speak of things I do not understand, she said. How can marriage be equal when one partner is clearly more valuable than the other? I have failed in my primary purpose while you are a successful military leader. Jake shook his head. That is where you are wrong, Princess. You have been told you are a failure, but I see someone who has survived years of criticism while maintaining her dignity. Someone who cares enough about her people to sacrifice her personal happiness for their benefit. That takes tremendous strength. The conversation continued for over an hour as Jake learned more about Zara's life and perspectives. She had been educated in multiple subjects including science, art, and philosophy, but her tutors always emphasized that her knowledge was secondary to her reproductive function as they talked. Jake found himself genuinely impressed by her intelligence and insight. Zara asked thoughtful questions about human society and military tactics, showing a strategic mind that had been overlooked by her own people. She would indeed be a valuable partner in building the alliance. When their meeting ended, Jake felt confident that the marriage arrangement could work not just as a political necessity, but as a genuine partnership. He began to see possibilities that went beyond mere duty and obligation. That night, Jake sent a message to Earth Command recommending approval for the marriage alliance. But his reasons went beyond strategic considerations. He had found someone worth fighting for, someone who deserved better than the life her own society had given her. Princess Zara returned to her chambers with her mind spinning from the conversation. No one had ever spoken to her as Jake had, treating her opinions as valuable and her feelings as important. She began to wonder if there might be more to life than the narrow path that had been chosen for her. The wedding preparations began immediately after Jake agreed to the marriage alliance. The Vorthan Royal Council worked with human diplomats to create a ceremony that would satisfy both cultures while strengthening the political bonds between their peoples. Zara found herself at the center of activities that had nothing to do with her personal wishes. Queen Mother Thala assigned her daughter's most trusted servants to help with the preparations. The elderly female named Kira had served the royal family for decades and understood the delicate balance between tradition and necessity. She approached Zara in the Crystal Garden, where the princess often went to think. My lady, Kira said with a respectful bow, the ceremony planners need your input on several matters. They wish to know your preferences for music, flowers, and ceremonial elements. Zara looked up from the singing blooms she had been tending, wondering why anyone cared about her preferences. What does it matter, she asked. The marriage serves a political purpose, not a personal one. Surely the council can decide such details without my involvement. The old servant sat beside her princess on the crystal bench, her weathered hands folding in her lap. Princess, she said, gently, this human captain is different from the Vorthan males who courted you before. He specifically requested that your wishes be considered in all wedding plans. Zara felt surprise wash through her. Jake had mentioned wanting their marriage to be a partnership, but she had not expected him to follow through on such promises. Most males spoke sweetly during courtship, then ignored their wives' opinions after the ceremony. What kind of requests has he made? She asked, curious, despite herself. Captain, Morrison insisted that you choose your own wedding attire, Kira replied. He said human brides traditionally have final say over such matters. He also requested that any ceremony elements that make you uncomfortable be removed or modified. This news troubled Zara more than it pleased her. A lifetime of being told her opinions did not matter had taught her to keep her preferences hidden. Even thinking about making choices felt dangerous, as if she might choose wrongly and disappoint everyone. The next few days brought a parade of wedding vendors, crystal workers, and ceremony officials. Each group presented options and waited for her decisions. Zara felt overwhelmed by the constant need to express preferences she had never been allowed to develop. Jake noticed her discomfort during one of their supervised meetings. They sat in the formal reception chamber with Ambassador Campbell and several Vorthon officials present. The conversation had turned to ceremony timing, and Jake observed how Zara seemed to shrink whenever asked for her opinion. "Princess," he said, interrupting a discussion about flower arrangements, "might we have a few moments to speak privately? I have some questions about Vorthon wedding customs that require your expert knowledge." The officials agreed readily, seeing this as proper preparation. Queen Mother Thala nodded approval while Ambassador Campbell smiled knowingly. Once they were alone, Jake moved his chair closer to Zara's position. "You seem troubled by the wedding planning," he said gently. "Is there something specific that worries you?" "Everything," she admitted quietly. "I have never been allowed to make such decisions before. What if I choose badly? What if my selections displease the council or embarrass our peoples?" Jake reached out slowly and took her hand in his. The contact startled her, since casual touching was forbidden between unmarried Vorthons, but his touch felt warm and reassuring. "Zara," he said, using her name without titles, "there are no wrong choices when it comes to personal preferences. The wedding should reflect who we are as individuals, not what others think we should be. But I do not know who I am," she replied with surprising honesty. "I have spent so many years being told what I am not that I have forgotten what I might be instead." This admission struck Jake deeply. He began to understand how thoroughly Zara's confidence had been destroyed by years of criticism and rejection. She had been reduced to a collection of failures, rather than being seen as a complete person with her own identity. "Then we will figure it out together," he said, squeezing her hand gently. "We have time to learn about each other before the ceremony. I want to know your favorite colors, your preferred foods, the music that makes you happy, all the things that make you yourself." Over the following weeks, Jake made good on his promise. He visited Zara daily, taking walks through the palace gardens, sharing meals and talking about everything except politics and duty. He asked about her childhood, her education, her dreams for the future. Slowly, Zara began to open up. She told him about her love for crystal sculpture and her secret hobby of composing harmony sequences for the singing crystals. She admitted her fascination with star charts and her childhood dream of traveling between worlds. Jake shared stories from his own life describing Earth customs and human relationships. He talked about his military career, but also about his interests in ancient history and classical music. Zara was amazed to learn that humans valued learning for its own sake, rather than just for practical applications. Their conversations revealed how differently their societies approached individual worth. Humans celebrated diverse talents and encouraged personal growth, while Vorthons focused on specific roles and dutiful service. Jake helped Zara see that her lack of children did not define her value as a person. The wedding ceremony took place 6 weeks after Jake's arrival. The Great Hall of Crystals was decorated with both human flowers and Vorthon singing plants, creating a beautiful blend of both worlds. Traditions. Music played that combined earth instruments with crystal harmonics. Zara wore robes of her own design that incorporated traditional Vorthon white with human blue accents. The garments made her feel beautiful and confident for the first time in years. Jake wore his dress military uniform modified with Vorthon crystal decorations. The ceremony itself was shorter than traditional Vorthon weddings, but included the essential elements from both cultures. They exchanged vows that emphasized partnership and mutual respect, rather than duty and obligation. The words felt genuine to Zara rather than empty ritual. When Jake kissed her at the ceremony conclusion, Zara felt a warmth spread through her body that had nothing to do with duty or politics. For the first time, she understood what human love songs described the feeling of being valued, for herself, rather than for what others wanted from her. The wedding feast lasted until dawn with entertainment from both worlds. Human musicians played alongside Vorthan crystal singers while dancers from both species performed together. The celebration felt genuinely joyful rather than merely ceremonial. As the evening wound down, Jake and Zara retired to the quarters that had been prepared for them. The rooms combined human comfort with Vorthan beauty, featuring both practical furniture and artistic crystal formations. Jake approached their wedding night with the same consideration he had shown throughout their courtship. He took time to help Zara feel comfortable and safe, making sure she understood that intimacy should be pleasurable for both partners rather than just an obligation. Their physical union was gentle and patient. Jake paid attention to Zara's responses, guiding her through experiences she had never imagined possible. The connection they formed was deeper than mere physical. Joining it was an emotional bond that surprised them both. Afterward, as they lay together in the soft light from the crystal formations, Zara felt a sense of completeness she had never experienced. She finally understood what marriage could be when both partners cared about each other's happiness. "I never knew it could be like this," she whispered against Jake's shoulder. "Everything I was taught about marriage was wrong." Jake stroked her blue-tinged hair gently. "Your teachers were preparing you for fourth-hand marriages," he said. "Those follow different rules. Human marriage is supposed to be about partnership and love, not just duty and children. But what if I still cannot give you children?" she asked, the fear that had haunted her for years surfacing. Again, what if the physicians were right about my condition? "Then we will face that together," Jake replied firmly. "But Zara, I want you to know that children would be wonderful, but they are not the only reason for marriage. I married you because I admire who you are, not because of what you might give me." His words began the healing process that would transform Zara from a woman defined by her failures into someone who understood her own worth. The wedding night marked not just the beginning of their marriage, but the start of her journey toward self-discovery. In the weeks that followed their union, both Jake and Zara threw themselves into the work of building the alliance. Their partnership extended beyond personal relationship into professional collaboration as they worked to bridge the gap between human and Vorthan societies. Neither of them suspected that their love would soon create something that both species had thought impossible. 3 months after their wedding, Zara woke feeling strangely different. She lay in the crystal bed watching the morning light filter through the chamber windows while Jake slept peacefully beside her. Something had changed in her body during the night, but she could not identify exactly what felt unusual. She rose carefully to avoid disturbing her husband and moved to the mirror wall that dominated one side of their quarters. Her reflection looked normal: pale blue skin, silver eyes, dark hair, flowing past her shoulders. But deep inside, she sensed something new stirring. The sensation grew stronger over the following days, accompanied by a fatigue that made her afternoon duties difficult. She found herself needing rest periods that had never been necessary before. Her appetite changed, craving food she had previously disliked while rejecting favorites. Jake noticed her changes before anyone else. He observed how she pushed food around her plate during meals and how she excused herself early from evening entertainments. When he asked about her health, she dismissed his concerns, claiming the stress of new marriage was affecting her system. 2 weeks into her mysterious condition, Zara experienced something that made her heart race with impossible hope. She felt a flutter deep in her abdomen, so subtle she almost missed it. The sensation lasted only seconds, but it was unmistakably familiar from the medical texts she had studied. Vorthan royal daughters were taught to recognize the signs of pregnancy from childhood, though Zara had never expected to need such knowledge. The flutter she felt was described in ancient texts as the first quickening when new life announced its presence. But such a thing was impossible. The court, physicians had examined her repeatedly over the years using the most advanced crystal scanning technology available. Their diagnosis had been unanimous and final. Her reproductive system was incapable of supporting life. She decided to wait before telling anyone about her suspicions. The shame of false hope would be unbearable if she was wrong. Better to observe the changes privately until she could be certain either the symptoms would disappear, proving her imagination was playing cruel tricks, or they would intensify beyond doubt. Jake left for a week-long military consultation with Vorthon defense commanders, planning joint training exercises for their combined forces. Zara used his absence to visit the royal physician secretly, requesting a private examination without explaining her reasons. Dr. Venth was the same elderly male who had pronounced her barren years earlier. His crystal scanners hummed as they moved over her body, searching for any abnormalities. The readings appeared on holographic displays that both physician and patient could observe. The old doctor stopped scanning abruptly, his silver eyes widening as he stared at the displays. "Princess," he whispered, his voice filled with disbelief. "The scanners show impossible readings." "What do you mean?" she asked, though. Her hearts were already racing with anticipation and fear. "The royal bloodline indicators are active," Dr. Venth said, pointing to pulsing lights on his instruments. "These sensors have remained dormant your entire life, showing no response to any stimulus. But now they glow with unmistakable signals." Zara stared at the lights that had never illuminated for her before. The royal bloodline sensors were genetic markers that activated only in the presence of developing royal offspring. They were considered infallible indicators of legitimate succession. "What does this mean?" she asked, needing to hear the words spoken aloud even though she already knew. "Princess Zara," Dr. Venth said, his voice trembling with awe, "you are carrying the next heir to the Vorthon throne. The impossible has occurred. New life grows within you." The news hit Zara like a physical blow. She had spent so many years accepting her childless fate that the possibility of pregnancy seemed like a dream. The joy was overwhelming, but so was the fear of hoping for something that might still be lost. "How is this possible?" she asked. "The scanners show no changes in my reproductive system. How can I carry a child when my body was deemed incapable?" The physician studied his readings with growing amazement. "Princess, the developing child shows unique characteristics I have never encountered. The genetic patterns display both Vorthon and human markers, creating something entirely unprecedented." "Human markers," Zara repeated, understanding flooding through her. The child was not purely Vorthon, but a hybrid of both species, combining traits from herself and Jake in ways that had never been achieved before. Dr. Venth continued his examination, documenting every reading while muttering to himself about the miraculous nature of the discovery. The pregnancy appeared to be progressing normally despite its unprecedented nature. All indicators suggested healthy development. "You must inform your mother immediately," the physician said. "This discovery will change everything for our people. The royal line will continue through a child that represents the best of both species." Zara asked for time before making any announcements. She wanted Jake to hear the news first, since he was the father and her partner in creating this miracle. Dr. Venth agreed reluctantly, understanding her desire for privacy while struggling with the magnitude of the discovery. When Jake returned from his military meeting, Zara met him in their private chambers. She had planned elaborate ways to share the news, but when she saw his tired face, her preparations disappeared. Instead, she simply took his hands in hers and spoke the truth. "Jake," she said softly, "I am pregnant." He stared at her for a long moment, processing the words that seemed impossible given everything they had been told about her condition. Then his face broke into the most radiant smile she had ever seen. "Are you certain?" he asked, pulling her into his arms. The joy in his voice made her own happiness feel real for the first time. "Dr. Venth confirmed it," she replied. "The royal bloodline sensors are active for the first time in my life. The child carries markers from both our species." Jake lifted her off her feet, spinning her around the room while laughing with pure delight. When he set her down, his eyes were bright with tears of joy. "You amazing woman," he said, kissing her gently. "How did you manage to prove everyone wrong?" "I think," she said with a smile, "that we proved them wrong together. This child exists because of what we created together, not just physically, but emotionally. Our love made something new possible." The news spread through the palace like wildfire. When they finally made the announcement, Queen Mother Thela wept with joy upon hearing that the royal line would continue. The court celebrated for 3 days straight, with crystal songs and traditional dances. Scientists from both worlds requested permission to study the pregnancy. Dr. Amy Foster arrived from the human fleet to work alongside Vorthan physicians, documenting this unprecedented biological event. Their research would advance understanding of interspecies reproduction for centuries. The Krell Empire chose that moment to launch their long-threatened invasion. Their massive ships appeared at the edge of the system, expecting to find the Vorthans weakened by internal conflicts. Instead, they encountered a unified human, Vorthan alliance strengthened by the symbol of their future cooperation. Jake took command of the defense fleet, while Zara coordinated civilian evacuations from her command center in the palace. The pregnancy made her a symbol of hope that both species fought to protect her condition, also made her a target that the enemy would try to eliminate. The battle raged for 6 days as Krell forces pushed deeper into the system. Their superior numbers seemed likely to overwhelm the defenders until human technology combined with Vorthan energy weapons proved devastatingly effective. The Alliance fleet fought with desperate determination. During the climactic battle, Zara felt the baby move strongly within her, as if responding to the chaos around them. The child seemed to be encouraging the fighters, reminding everyone what they were protecting. The movement gave her strength to continue coordinating the defense. Victory came suddenly when the combined fleet broke through Krell lines and destroyed their command ships. The surviving enemy vessels retreated, leaving the system secure. The celebration that followed was tempered by grief for those lost but strengthened by hope for the future. Zara and Jake stood together on the palace balcony watching the victorious ships return. Their child had been conceived in love, carried through conflict, and would be born into a universe where cooperation between species had proven stronger than hatred. The impossible pregnancy had become a symbol of what love could achieve when it transcended the boundaries others tried to impose. The barren princess had proven that worth was not determined by others' expectations, but by the connections people made with each other. As Zara felt her child moving within her, she knew their story was just beginning. This pregnancy was not an ending, but a new chapter in the relationship between worlds. The child would grow up as living proof that differences between peoples were opportunities rather than obstacles. The final months of Zara's pregnancy brought visitors from across the galaxy. Species that had heard rumors of the impossible hybrid child sent ambassadors to witness this unprecedented event. Scientists, philosophers, and leaders came to study what many considered a miracle of biological cooperation. Zara found herself at the center of attention she had never wanted or expected. Her condition made her a symbol of hope for peaceful relations between different peoples. But the constant scrutiny made her uncomfortable. She preferred quiet moments with Jake, discussing their hopes and fears about parenthood. Dr. Amy Foster had established a joint research facility combining human and Vorthan medical technology. The pregnancy progressed, unlike any previously recorded, with the developing child showing characteristics that defied conventional understanding of both species' biology. The child appears to be adapting traits from both parents. In real time, Amy explained during one of their regular examinations, the genetic patterns shift and evolve, suggesting an intelligence that chooses which characteristics to express at different developmental stages. This news thrilled the scientific community but worried Zara. She wondered what kind of life her child would have, being so different from both parent species. Would the baby be accepted by either culture or forever caught between worlds? Jake sensed her concerns during one of their evening walks through the crystal gardens. The singing plants responded to their emotions, filling the air with harmonious melodies that reflected their mixed feelings of joy and apprehension. "What troubles you?" he asked, as they sat beside the central fountain. The flowing water created gentle music that usually calmed Zara's nerves, but tonight she seemed restless. "I worry about our child," she admitted, placing her hands over her rounded belly. "What will life be like for someone who belongs fully to neither world? Will humans accept a child with Vorthan characteristics? Will my people embrace someone who is part alien?" Jake took her hands in his, warming them with his touch. "Our child will belong to both worlds," he said firmly. "That is not a weakness, but a strength. Someone who understands multiple perspectives can build bridges that others cannot imagine." Their daughter chose to be born during the celebration of the Alliance victory, exactly 1 year after the first human ships had arrived. The timing seemed symbolic, as if she wanted to mark the anniversary of her parents' peoples coming together. The birth took place in the Royal Medical Facility with both human and Vorthon physicians attending. Dr. Foster worked alongside Dr. Venth, while Jake held Zara's hand through the contractions that had begun at dawn. The labor progressed smoothly despite the unique nature of the pregnancy. Both species monitored readings showed normal patterns, even though the child being born was unprecedented in galactic history. The medical teams prepared for any complications that might arise. Princess Elena emerged into the world with a cry that resonated at frequencies both species could hear. Her voice carried the crystal clarity of Vorthon communication combined with human emotional expression. The sound brought tears to everyone present. She appeared human at first glance with pink-tinged skin and dark hair like her father, but as the medical staff cleaned her tiny form, the Vorthon characteristics became apparent. Silver eyes opened to study the faces around her while faint blue patterns traced delicate lines along her skin. The royal bloodline sensors throughout the palace activated simultaneously, creating a symphony of crystal music that announced the birth of the heir. The celebration could be heard from orbit as both civilizations welcomed the child who represented their shared future. Jake held his daughter for the first time, marveling at the perfect blend of characteristics from both parents. She was undeniably beautiful. But more than that, she radiated a sense of completeness, as if the universe had been waiting for her existence. Zara watched her husband bond with their child, feeling a contentment she had never imagined possible. The woman who had been called barren, worthless, and broken had created new life that would change the course of galactic history. Elena grew rapidly during her first months, displaying intelligence that amazed her caregivers. She seemed to understand both spoken language and crystal song communication, responding appropriately to either form of address. Her development suggested cognitive abilities beyond either parent species. The child became a bridge between worlds in ways her parents had not anticipated. Visiting dignitaries from various species found themselves drawn to her presence, sensing something special about this unique being. She seemed to calm conflicts simply by existing. As Elena learned to walk, she moved between human and Vorthon caregivers with equal comfort. She played human games and participated in crystal singing with natural ability that suggested she truly belonged to both cultures, rather than being caught between them. Her first words were spoken in both languages simultaneously, creating new sounds that expressed concepts neither species had words for. Scientists recorded her vocalizations, believing they might represent the beginning of a new form of universal communication. The wedding that had begun as political necessity had evolved into genuine love that created something unprecedented. Jake and Zara discovered that their partnership had produced more than just an heir to the throne. They had created a new type of being who would help reshape interstellar civilization. Their mixed couples began appearing throughout both civilizations, inspired by the success of the royal marriage. The barriers between species started dissolving as people realized that differences could create strength rather than division. Elena celebrated her first birthday surrounded by family, friends, and representatives from dozens of worlds. The little girl who toddled between crystal formations and human furniture embodied the future of peaceful cooperation her parents had helped create. Queen Mother Thala officially named Elena as her successor, ensuring that the royal line would continue through this remarkable child. The announcement was broadcast across the galaxy, marking a new era in Vorthon history and interstellar relations. The HFY story of the barren princess who became pregnant spread throughout known space, inspiring other species to look beyond their prejudices and consider new possibilities for cooperation. Love had proven stronger than biology, politics, and tradition. Zara often stood at her window holding Elena while watching ships from various worlds arrive at their spaceport. Each vessel brought new opportunities for understanding and growth. The child in her arms represented hope for a universe where differences were celebrated rather than feared. Jake would join them at these moments, wrapping his arms around both his wife and daughter. The family that had seemed impossible now felt as natural as breathing. They had created something beautiful together that would influence countless generations. As Elena began forming her first sentences in her unique hybrid language, Zara realized their daughter would face challenges they could not fully anticipate. But she would also have opportunities no previous generation had possessed. The ability to understand multiple perspectives would make her a natural leader. The impossible pregnancy had become the foundation for a new type of civilization, where cooperation replaced conflict and understanding overcame fear. The child who should never have existed was destined to help create a better future for everyone. Years later, when scholars studied this period, they would identify Zara's pregnancy as the turning point when the galaxy began moving toward unity, rather than division. The love between two people had created ripples that transformed the universe. The barren princess had proven that worth was not determined by others' expectations, but by the courage to love beyond boundaries. Her daughter would grow up knowing that anything was possible when people chose cooperation over conflict, understanding over prejudice, and love over fear.